Okay, it's close to 8 o'clock. We'll get started. I'll call the Whitley County Redevelopment Commission June the 24th, 2025 meeting to order. This time I'll take roll call. Teresa Basinger, Frank Kessler,
Present.
John Myers,
Present.
Mike Schrader, Jill Western,
Here.
I'm here, Tiffany,
Here.
Nathan.
I think I'm here.
Okay.
What about me?
Nah, it's, we'll move on.
Fair enough.
Okay, first thing on the item is Biggs Incorporated, presentation and request.
Yeah, so Kevin's here and he just wanted to describe a little bit about what the potential project is and maybe a request for certain TIFs or whatnot. So,
Well, good morning. It's not first on the agenda, but thank you for having me. Dale, thanks for setting this up. I got a hold of Dale here about a month ago and expressed our interest to further develop a few of the properties that we have here in Whitley County, primarily Lincoln Point, which is out off of Old Hoosier Highway. We have, as probably most of you know, developed that over the past 20 plus years. There's essentially two more future development tracks or a piece of ground that we would divide into two more future sections for future development. And we would like to start the pursuit of that development. Thank you for bringing that up. So the top of the screen there, that up to the next county road would be the last of the real estate that we own, where the cursor is, and we would develop that in over kind of two more sections. What we've discovered over the past about 3 years or so is that our conventional development model that we've relied on for about 40 years, over 2 generations, no longer works. And I'll kind of explain what that means. And Andy kind of knows the drill here, as he's helped us in some other communities with some challenges in accessing some funds to help fill a development gap. And so the reality that we woke up to about 2 or 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago now maybe, was actually up in Warsaw. And we were similar to Lincoln Point. We've got a development up called Bella Augusta, where I think we've got a total of 5 phases laid out in this piece of ground we bought 20 years ago. And when we got to phase 4, we did our thing, you know, acquired the next tract of real estate, got our engineering completed, put the numbers together, realized that if we were to generate our return, which is about in the mid-teens in our internal rate of return, that we would have to take a price from phase 3 at about $48,000 up to about $90,000. And because of the escalation in construction costs, both material, labor, and land. So and this is just what we're seeing all across Northeast Indiana, areas that we develop. And so we just had to step back and say, this just doesn't work. We can't pursue the next phase of our development, and the only way that this can really be achieved is through trying to seek some soft dollars to come into the project to fill that development gap. Ultimately, we ended up working with the town to receive an award of residential TIF that helped fill that gap. Andy helped us over in Cherubusco, where we received a ready allocation of $1 million. The town is using residential TIF for some of the off-site work there in Cherubusco. We've also used ready funds and TIF, both combined, in Ossian, which we're just finishing up a development there that we started about 1.5 years ago. So every development that we are pursuing now needs to have some level of subsidy to bridge that gap. So when you try to go from a $48,000 lot to a $90,000 lot overnight, even if you got somebody to say, hey, no problem, I'm willing to pay that price, if it's not a cash deal and they have to go finance that at the bank, the first thing the bank does is they go out and get an appraisal. And an appraisal is gonna reflect that gap. So it's kind of suicide to walk into a development like that. You'll immediately have to discount your prices of your home and lot together by $30,000-$40,000 because of the appraisal gap. So it's stifled development, really, all areas that we've seen that we work in. But we're really fortunate that there was recognition at the state level that this was a problem coming down the road. And so, was it about 6 years ago, Andy, that they enacted the residential TIF?
Sounds right. I'm not sure how long it's been around. It seems
About
right.
5 or 6 years. We were a little, when it first came out, we were tracking it, but there's some structural issues around the legislation, and after a couple of years, they worked those issues out. And as I mentioned, we've now, I think we're on the 3rd community. We've done 3 of these working with the residential TIF. So it functions much like a commercial TIF that's been around forever, where the Redevelopment Commission identifies the geographic area that has the TIF overlay. Any increment that's then captured within that, specifically residential, all the property taxes, goes into the Redevelopment Commission, and then the Redevelopment Commission is able to direct those funds. So what we would like the commission to consider would be a residential TIF in this area, so that we would be able to then make a request of a portion of that increment that we could then bring forward to help with the construction costs. There's another tool that's available, came out last year from Indiana Finance Authority. IFA introduced what's called a Residential Infrastructure Fund, where they are able to provide a low-interest loan to a political subdivision for the use of residential incentive development. And we've now closed on 3 of those also with IFA. They were able to get $25 million approved in the last legislative round, and the next application round, I think, comes sometime maybe in August or September. That would also be a request that we would make to work with the community on a joint application. Again, it has to be an application by a political subdivision, so a private developer can't directly ask to make application to Indiana Finance Authority. But with the community's help, we could go seek a low-interest loan that pairs up very nicely with the residential TIF, as the loan is a 20-year fixed rate. The loans we've closed on are anywhere between like 3.2% and maybe 4%. So it's substantially under market. So that can help our project work. And again, being able to pair up nicely with the residential TIF, we can borrow the money from IFA, and then the repayment source is the residential TIF over time. So again, we've navigated this, multiple times before. So this is what we'd like to do here with Lincoln Point, because the reality is that without the assistance of some of these tools, it just makes residential development unfeasible. And so we've really been kind of focusing our efforts on the communities that have been willing and able to work with us on using these tools. So we've really have Lincoln Point kind of teed up as one of our next developments that we'd like to pursue throughout the region, along with a couple others. And I've had to take a pass on one community that I made this presentation. They said, well, we think this is just administratively too much work. So I was like, well, sorry, but we have to move on to the next community that we can work with. So for about the past 4 or 5 years, I've kind of been advising communities that, if you're not using all the tools at your disposal, you're going to be left behind by the communities that are your neighbors that are using these tools that can bring more residential on, because otherwise it really has stifled the development work that we've been trying to do across the region. And about every other developer's experiencing the same. So the other seed I'd like to plant as well, if the commission is open to utilizing the residential TIF, would be to also designate some future ground that we have available for development and already platted and ready to go at Eagle Glen. There's still 2 future development tracks at Eagle Glen that we would also like to advance and pursue. We've just been kind of busy in a lot of other areas that we haven't, but I know the mayor has been anxiously kind of asking me to move forward with that development also. So if you want to bring up a map there, I could kind of point to those 2 sections of Eagle Glen. One is out by Highway 30, just up the road a little bit. There's I think it's about 30 acres that you see from the highway. It's kind of where the sign is there that you drive by. It would be right there. That is about 50% of the parcel. Yeah, there's four, there you go. Those 4 pieces right there would, I consider the one development opportunity, future development. And then there's also one more piece of ground at the very end, the South Eagle Glen Trail, north, you go up right there, that area. Yeah, just on the other side of that fairway. That's the driving range that we split off, and that parcel right there is the last piece of ground at the end of South Eagle Glen Trail. So those are 2 more. And again, those the first 4 chunks there that you highlighted, it's already been platted along back years ago, the original development. The one to the north, we would most likely replat because it's been, since we sold off part of that ground to the driving range, that just required a reconfiguration. But those are 2 more areas that I think would be good residential development opportunities to consider. The little challenge that we have with that southern portion there by Highway 30 is that to access that future development ground, we have to cross the creek, and there's a relatively robust structure that's going to have to be installed there. And I've been in discussions with the mayor for several years now about assistance to get that bridge installed to cross that creek, because an incentive that the city has is that if you look at the bottom of the screen right there, there's a sewer lift station that is located right there, that currently the only way the town can access that city utility is directly off of Highway 30. And I get a letter at least about once a year with the county's intent to decommission that entrance to make that a limited access highway. And we've continued to fight that because obviously that's the only way that the town can access that utility. And so I think we're all hopeful that at some point the funding comes through that whole stretch of Highway 30 can be created more limited access to create better commerce through this area, through this part of the state. But when that happens, we'll lose access, so the only access to be able to service that utility across the road. So let me pause there for a minute and see if there's any questions I can field.
So I have a question for Nathan. So is the previous parcel that we looked at, is that currently in our US 30 TIF?
So the remainder of Lincoln Point,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the green area. Green area is our main union TIF, that was adopted in '93, and expires in 2034. The purple line there is the city limits.
Mm-hmm.
Just to remind everybody of that, Eagle Glen is 100% annexed. So
So how does that work if you if we have a TIF already there, and we talk about a housing TIF that's already in that.
I think we would probably have to remove that
Okay.
from the commercial TIF and put it in the residential TIF. I actually am not 100% sure off the top of my head. I mean, I know you can't overlay 2 TIF districts,
Right,
but
right.
the residential inside the commercial, I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head. But my gut would be we'd have to remove it.
So
Okay.
that was going to be what I'd say too, and because it's a legacy TIF, we already capture increment off of any residential housing. And it's been my recommendation that you don't take the expense and then the limitations of creating a residential TIF. You just utilize the legacy TIF. While it does have a shorter time frame, you were talking about 20 years, we're only looking at about 10. It's far less upfront cost.
Mhm. Well, and I guess that was my question. Well, where I was going with this is, if we already have a TIF there, I mean, are there limitations in terms of what we can use current TIF money to do for residential projects versus industrial projects?
As far as I know, it's not. It's benefiting something in the TIF.
Public improvements,
Yeah.
roads, sewer, things like that.
You wouldn't have a training grant available.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and then also just, the size of the additional tracks or tractor tracks. Going through all that to set up a new TIF, are really gaining that much in terms of assessed value that would support the costs of the infrastructure.
How many lots do you estimate are left?
Over 2 phases, I'm gonna guess there's probably about 50 lots left.
That's what I would say too. And if you figure 50 lots, what's your average price point?
About 350 house and lot would be kind of
Okay.
what we're targeting.
So assessed value is probably a little less than that. Just make it 300,000 to make it even. That's, do the math on that because I don't have a calculator pulled up.
15.
15 million. So that would be $15 million worth, give or take, of increments since we're starting with bare ground.
Okay.
Well, this has been helpful. I didn't realize it was already in a commercial TIF.
Yeah, and it's an old one, so you do get that benefit, or that TIF gets that benefit.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. Speaking on behalf of the school board, we are so opposed to any residential TIFs getting started in our area because it's a slippery slope. This might be very targeted to just the Lincoln Point area, but once one comes in, it's harder to, I think, refuse any other requests. We're already facing $1 million shortfall in our budget for the coming year, and we've had to lay off staff. We would probably use any resources at our command to try and prevent any residential TIFs from being enacted in our district. I would encourage the board, this body, in lieu of the fact that you've never allowed any pass-throughs, you've never given up any residential housing that you could have allowed to go through to the school and the other taxing districts. We would be very much opposed to a residential TIF getting started. And I would encourage you to look at any other options, as this gentleman has described, the loans, anything else that could possibly be done to assist in we're not opposed to new housing, of course, that would be great. But it just seems odd that it's always on the backs of taxpayers to put the burden for development that doesn't necessarily benefit the community in the way that it's been promised. So that's just, like you said, while we're planting seeds, I just thought I would throw that seed out there as well.
So that was a concern that was raised when we were developing a piece of ground down in Wells County in Austin. And we, actually, when the residential TIF was initially enacted, however long ago, 5 or 6 years ago, there was a requirement that the school board had to essentially bless the use of that. That has since been taken off the table legislatively. It's not required now.
Of course.
But there was a very robust discussion at that time, and I'm not on a public school board, so I don't know all the ins and outs workings, but throughout that discussion, what was explained is that the funding that is attached to every kiddo that comes along, any new kids that the school has to serve, is a dollar amount that exceeds what would be the increment that they otherwise wouldn't receive. So there's still a net benefit that you're creating by having housing that would then allow families to come into the community.
Yes, and that sounds very good. That's exactly the argument that was given for the original TIF. All these people were gonna come into the community, working at SDI. As it turned out, the school received like net zero benefit from that because it just didn't happen. So that's another theoretical that you can talk about. It didn't happen in our case. What we did lose was all the assessed valuation that went into the TIF district, so.
What Kevin was referring to when the law was first enacted, in order to create a residential TIF, the school board had to approve it. And about two years ago, I think, that was removed from the legislation, so school board approval is no longer required.
Of course it was removed. Yes,
What,
of course
was it removed entirely, or was it just put on pause for a few years? 'Cause
I
there
believe it was removed entirely.
Okay, there were a couple items that were just
Yeah.
slated, cut out for a couple years and then would go back into effect. As for Eagle Glen, that's in the city limits, and unless we get really creative with the city, the County Redevelopment Commission has no authority over that one.
Makes sense.
Uh,
So who would we work with?
City Redevelopment
City development, okay.
and the mayor.
Back to this map, so where are the utilities currently? I mean, obviously, they're up in
Yeah, they're right at the end of the street.
the, yeah,
Yeah, and then we have the lift station that we just put in, located right here.
okay.
So that might give a little bit of different option. I know this has been pretty well designed to go this way, but it also does flow this way. So if it winds up being cheaper to kind of do a little bit of redesign, that may be beneficial. Water is along both roads.
And that's all city owned, so we'd have to work with them.
As
well,
extension,
like we did
yeah.
in the past, okay.
When, is that the one we just put in, just
Yeah,
with that most recent project?
yeah, to serve these properties.
Mhm.
But yeah, that lift station's right there.
Okay.
And all the right-of-way that we acquired are these parcels.
Mhm. Yeah.
Looks like that one's misdrawn. We'll have to take that up with JS.
It's impressive it's on GIS already.
Well, I think that's something the commission's gonna have to think about and look at. I don't know, do we have anything planned for the, across the road? Do we have anything going on there?
In the Lamley property?
Yeah.
As part of all of the sewer discussions, we talked about various ideas, but I don't think that they are proactive in development. I do think that they probably have a price if someone were to come forward. So status quo is probably the best thought right now.
That's where we redid the drainage, so.
Yes. Yeah, you can see the
Yeah,
tile
Yeah,
had been
yeah.
done.
Is that the Rogers property up there on the?
This is the
Yeah.
Rogers.
from a planning standpoint, I mean, do we need to be concerned about, I don't know, residential and industrial? I mean, we've
Lincoln,
got some space there, but.
Lincoln Point was approved in the mid-90s, so I'm thinking that any effects have long since been negated. We have talked about possibly multifamily being appropriate for the Lamley property, partially for buffering, but also because of the terrain and the drainage patterns there. But it's a good thought, but I don't think that it's a huge impact.
Okay.
What about the traffic? Especially if we do something with that parcel right there, but what, if he goes up there and builds 50, you got 50 up there, you say?
My guess is we're about 50 more lots there laid out.
Is that gonna be, are you gonna go over and get on to 300 east there, somewhere, I'm assuming? To get out of there?
I'm quite certain I should have brought the sketch layout we had, but I'm quite certain we have another point of egress than just the, in our last couple phases, we came on, what lane is that? Picket lane off of 300, so I think we probably have.
Isn't it something like 2 cul-de-sacs here and like one more off this direction?
Yeah.
If it isn't, then this is kind of representative, but it is planned to have not another access off of 300, but one off of 100 South, which 100 South is not a great road. It's not as torn up as it is west because it doesn't have the high truck traffic, but it's still a pretty basic road. And then how much impact it has on 300 East. We've already talked about the impacts of US 30, cutting 300 off, becoming a through route up to 205, all sorts of different things. 50 lots coming onto 300 East is going to have some impact, but not as much as US 30 and industrial development there to the west. If we're looking at infrastructure projects, sewer, water, as we discussed, and then potentially road improvement along 100 South, maybe another.
I assume all the roads have then been dedicated, right? Inside the development, or like public roads?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what?
John, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna make a comment that, I don't know all the dynamics of what you described, the steel dynamics and the jobs and schools, but what always seems to lead back is that housing is no longer just a housing issue, it's an economic development issue. And if Steel Dynamic needs, 1,000 jobs, it's hard to generate those 1,000 jobs right here in Columbia City or Whitley County. And so therefore, they're pulling in jobs from, 5 or 6 counties. And so, that economic benefit does end up leaving the county, and it doesn't help the school. So at its core, to really help the school system is to have more kids in the county. So that's, I think, something for the commission to think about, sure the school board too, but it's all about trying to get more butts and seats to help pay those teachers.
John, do you have anything else you can think
I
of?
think it's on there.
Frank?
Obviously, since that area is already in our TIF, that kind of changes
Yeah.
Right.
the picture some. And like you say, I think it's something we need to take a closer look at and see what direction we can go there.
And just to be clear, I'm not prepared, wasn't prepared today to come and ask for a number because we don't know what that number is yet. But I will tell you, generally speaking, from our experience, the last 2 that we've done here, the one that Andy helped with in Churubusco, which is Turtle Meadows, and then our development up in Kosciuszko County in Warsaw, the gap for a phase, which is generally around 35 to 45 lots, is about $1 million. We asked for $1 million of ready, which was awarded the project, which we're just breaking ground now in up there off 205 Busco, and the award that we got through the residential TIF up in Kosciuszko County, Warsaw, was just over $1,055,000, I think. So, but what we would do is just like we've done with other communities, it's a completely open book process. We first want to know if there's a willingness to work with us, because I don't want to go spend a bunch of time in engineering and get actual costs put together and then find out we're not moving forward. That's just sunk money. But if there's a willingness, then we'll go through that process, and we will come with the actual cost estimates and back into then what that number is that we need. And we'll show you how we calculate our internal rate of return and the absorption, and it's all based on all of our historic numbers that we've pulled together from both within the county and other communities of like size. This is kind of the pace at which we expect sales to happen. That determines kind of how the increment works. So we'd be open book with all that information with the commission, with the community, so that everybody knows what's going on.
What's the estimated takedown time for, you said two phases, 50 lots, but what's the total time?
So we back into the phasing size of the development really based on the financing that we can rely on from our banking partners. So our banking partners usually will only go out 3 years on interest-only loan. And so we want to try to have the private loan portion retired or pretty close to retired after 3 years. So then we look at our historical absorption and say, how many lots do we need to sell that we can get through 80 to 100% of those lots within a 3-year period? And when we run that math, it usually creates a phasing of about 25 to 35 lots. So that's kind of how we, does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we come up with our phasing size of each section.
So all things staying relatively the same, we'd be looking at, if we started today, being complete or nearly complete in about within 10 years.
Yeah, I think that's a safe assumption.
Well, I think it's something the commission wants to take time to think about it, so I'm sure that in time it'd probably be good, but I think with everything we got going on, we need to look at it and make sure that's definitely what we want to do. So we can get back with you, and maybe if you have any other further information, you could get with us and let us know. So
yeah, I'd be happy to share our current sketch of that Nathan's seen before. I can share that. I don't think that we've made any adjustments, but periodically we'll make slight adjustments to the lot layouts based on the absorption and things of the phases. So I appreciate the consideration. I always like to kind of leave you all with another question. It's just, is there anything else that we can help with in the community related to residential housing? As we do kind of full service development everywhere from multifamily to single family, semi-custom, affordable housing. We kind of do all that under the umbrella of our big group flag. And so, I always like to plant the seed. If there's any other needs you have, we're happy to help solve some of these challenges that the communities are facing, and we'd like to get the feedback from you on what your specific needs are. I think this product has been pretty successful here and is warranted for more of it. But if there's other product types that you're needing here in the community, certainly let us know. We'd love to continue to be a good partner with the community, and we've really enjoyed working here in Whitley County for the past 40 years. So I'd like to maybe with the next 40 help. So.
Kevin, I do have one other quick thought. If you could have Kevin McDermott swag, I'll get the cursor here. I know the current infrastructure design is, of course, all through the internal subdivision. but just see if it does make sense to take any of the sewer up to 100 and over to that lift station. Going that route might open up an opportunity for upsizing this part so it could better serve the rest of the territory farther east, which would be in the interest of the commission more than just your development.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I can ask him to contemplate a sewer connection to that
Yes.
station.
If it's not feasible, it's not feasible, but it's worth looking at.
Yep. Sounds good.
Well, thank you, appreciate it.
All right, yeah, thank you for your time. Appreciate
you.
it.
Okay, we'll move on. Project updates. Freedom, Project Freedom.
Working on getting the RFP ads put together for, as we discussed last time, for getting some proposals on what to do with the barn and potentially the other outbuildings. So that I should be getting to the newspapers yet this week. That's what I had on that. We do have Dr. Gilliam from the Historical Society here with, he was one who was interested in the barn, if you want to listen to his
Yes.
concept.
Come on up.
Okay, good morning.
Morning.
So I was in a meeting with Nathan and just happened to mention that this 1870s era barn was possibly going to be burned down. We're discussing the Yellow River Chris Niedermeyer property on the east side of the county for development. And it's like, what? Burn this down? It's an awesome barn. Nathan was our salesperson on this.
I didn't have to do much selling.
So we went out there and looked at Kurt, my friend here. He gets old barns. He's got one right now he bought in Michigan, is reassembling it, so we're really excited about this. So what my request is to give us guidelines on what stays. There's a lot of siding, aluminum siding. There's a lot of raccoon poop and a buzzard nest inside, a lot of bales of straw, a lot of wood that we're not going to be able to use, flooring and gates and this and that, and the front doors. Request is, you don't have to tell us right now, but things that are going to stay, things that we're going to move, our timeline, and we've got four bids right now out, two that we've got, or we have 4 bids out, 3 that we received for removing the barn. So it's possible. We're going to remove it, number it, and store it until further use. It's just, we don't want to see that thing torn down. 2 of the logs there are 60 feet long. It's awesome. So anyhow, just we're asking for guidelines on what we do with materials and management of the deconstruction and reassembly. The second thing from the Historical Society viewpoint, and I'm speaking out of turn, I guess, for the 4-H Museum, there's some cool stuff in that house. When Mr. Niedermeyer died, it was just like walking back in time. He had clothing in there from his parents, this wool clothing from the 1920s. There's some really cool harness for workhorses in there, deal ball, cream separator, and miscellaneous items that would be great at the Historical Museum and at the 4-H Historical Museum. So just need some guidance and direction on what to do with that stuff. There's a lot of junk in there too, and in the basement there's some great jars that are probably 50 or 60 years old filled with some food that you guys might try, and make sure you're close to the hospital to do that. But anyhow, just appreciate the opportunity through Nathan to be able to preserve this really great part of our heritage in Whitley County, and the total intent is for this to be reassembled in the county at some point. But we just, and then give us a guideline too on when you need to have this out. So
Can you have it all out by Saturday, Russ?
sure. It's gonna be a little warm. It might be Sunday morning, but yeah.
Are you?
So,
Is the Historical Society a 501c3?
yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Yep. You bet. So the barn may not, that's going to be a private thing probably. Unless I don't know where we're going to put it. Maybe Smith's parking lot or something. I don't know. But the contents of that house and the items there would definitely go to both of the for each museum or the Historical Museum in Whitley County.
Okay.
So anyhow, feel free to contact me at any time. And Kurt is our construction expert here. If you have technical questions on disassembly and assembly, he's the guy. Thank you very much.
Questions? Any questions?
How long does the disassembly process for a building that size take?
We had a bid from at one company, and it's of course an Amish crew down in Bern, and they said a couple of weeks, barring challenges. But they looked at it. He's been in several barns, and a couple of weeks. So.
If the commission moves forward with that, would you be okay if they gave the barn to the Historical Society and then you dealt with the private party to get it out of there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
It just statutorily that works
easier
easier
for
for
us.
them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Our goal is to save that place.
Yeah.
Now, we are not gonna take the dead sheep carcasses in the bottom layer either, so if you're interested in that, that's still there.
The fire department probably can use those.
Yeah. So anyhow, just decide what you wanna do with the different components there, and our main goal is to save the frame of the building. We do not know for sure what the old wood siding looks like underneath, but the main frame is fantastic, and the floor's a little rough. They said, yeah, that's not worth probably messing with taking a floor, just leave that. So the fire department could probably burn stuff like that, so anyhow.
So would it be too fast for you to, I don't know, get a proposal together and come back to us at our first meeting in July, which?
I'd probably come next week if you want to.
Which begs the question, and one reason I haven't gotten the ads together yet, if it does go through the museum, do you still want to do an RFP for just general proposals? If so, we'll have a deadline I think we settled on in late July for opening in August. Or do you just want to work with the museum directly and not do an RFP?
I think that you're asking them what, correct me if I'm wrong, you're asking them what they want you to have. I think they probably say, what do you want?
What do
Right?
you want and when can you get rid of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think you just tell them everything you want.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, just mainframe, but if you guys want the metal, we'll leave that in a big pile. If you want the, any of the flooring.
They want
We
nothing.
want
Or
nothing.
nothing.
You can have whatever you want. I
We're
We're
think.
gonna burn down whatever
Yeah.
you don't take, Russ.
Other than
Yeah.
the big doors and burnable stuff, we could leave that, right? Right?
Well, you said you had to haul it all away.
What's that?
You said we had to haul it all away in containers.
The non-burnable stuff, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that, no problem.
Yeah, you don't
Like the
necessarily.
metal and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But if you want to recycle the aluminum,
Yep.
go ahead and do
You
that.
do that, but, like the inside is pretty good, but there's a bunch of bales of straw and hay and stuff in there, old stuff, and a lot of raccoon poop and exciting things, so anyhow.
I think also, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the contents of the house, anything you want, just tell them what you want. You guys want nothing,
Okay.
correct?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we can work with you
Yeah.
on
Take-
getting out there and.
Yeah,
Okay.
take
Great.
everything that you find to be
If,
of interest.
We'll get the ball rolling,
And-
and who's my contact person? You guys?
Probably us.
Okay.
We're most readily available. And the museum itself is a county department. So
Okay.
would liability be covered under by extension because of that?
You mean the insurance?
Uh-huh.
Well,
probably.
yeah, Tiffany
That-
looked into the insurance for the fire department, but if I mean,
I can read
the
back out
the
that.
museum, I mean, the way I contemplate this is the Historical Society will transfer ownership of whatever they want to them, all
To the 501c3.
to the 501c3, and then whatever they do from there is their business.
Give it to the museum, they can
Yeah.
have a big bonfire, we don't care.
Yeah.
As far as our liability, the county already owns the property. So
Right.
that
We'll do
should
a
be-
simple
should be-
little agreement with them, transferring everything to them, and they'll indemnify us if somebody gets hurt taking down the barn. And
I guess I'm thinking more the personal property in the house, which could be removed Saturday, whatever. So a little bit speedier timeline on that if they got people in there and started extracting materials. The personal property out, do we have any concerns about that to go to the museums?
Yeah.
Only thing comes up, let us know, we'll get the ball rolling on that. And our construction people that we have to disassemble, of course, they're all, have liability insurance and all that good stuff.
Well, maybe we do this, if we could do before the next meeting, you just get a detailed list of everything you want, including the barn, whatever. I'll prepare an agreement, we'll attach that as an exhibit,
Awesome.
and we could approve it at the next meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay.
Well, we probably won't go over there today. A little toasty today, but later on. So thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Russ.
you.
Thank you, Doc.
And I will hold off on the formal RFP then, correct? Okay.
And I assume we just table this agreement again, the fire department, until we figure out exactly what they're taking?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
say
If they're
yes.
gonna,
Okay.
if they're gonna leave remaining stuff there, like the floor and
Yeah.
under stuff. we
Let's
may
figure out
want-
what they're gonna take, and then we can have the fire burn the rest.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, Overdeer Park road design.
No update since last time. I don't remember who was here last time. Because I gave an update on the right-of-way width.
Yeah, so I was here, and Kim, I think you left before the presentation, and you weren't here last time. So talk to these guys.
I had done a quick corridor model using Civil 3D for Overdeer Road, and I think, if I remember right, we decided that the standard 80-foot right-of-way for an industrial or a minor collector road would be sufficient for permanent right-of-way, but we might need temporary right-of-way for construction for embankment or ditch slopes, which would then get handed back over to the property owner. And then that was just going to be enough for us to go enter into talks with your home source.
Yeah, actually, the property owner is BRC Corp, and I've got an email into that CEO.
Other than that, no new updates. It's been a busy couple weeks.
Is there a design on that? The way that road's gonna be in the park?
So there's a rough sketch, or a rough idea, but it makes a lot of assumptions on the triangle. wood.
And before we get too far along, so I was on a sales trip last week, and I was actually out in California meeting with the developers interested in the property. And I specifically asked him, did he care if a road bisected that either way? I mean, and again, I'm getting way ahead of myself. It's not like we're close to doing anything, but he's doing some properties up in the South Bend area, and he did have, opinions as far as a developer where that road might bisect the property. And so before we do anything, it might help to have a developer or two just kind of say
What do you think?
what they're thinking.
Yeah. The alignment on the BRC property doesn't have too much variability. It's more on the Niedermeyer property that.
Are you
it
thinking
swings.
that the redevelopment commission would obviously put the road in, right? That's your thought?
I don't know. I just didn't
Okay.
do it in.
Do you have somebody else who would?
No, well,
Access
my
to-
thought is that maybe.
Council wants to do it, I think, I'm sure we're fine.
In light of what Dale said, maybe you just market the property like it is with the incentive that the redevelopment commission will put in a road as the developer deems appropriate. So you don't put it in some place that would
Right.
curtail some developer from coming in
Yeah.
instead of.
Agreed.
I think the road needs to go in though, because we have to expect US 30 cutting off 600 and the need to divert or reduce the amount of impact on Lincoln Way. So we have to plan for it. But again, I think allowing the developer to decide exactly where the connection is sensible.
And his point too is don't get too ahead of yourself until you can guarantee water and sewers at the property.
Yeah. Water is on the property.
Yeah, sewer.
The other option was redevelopment commission pays the match for a federal funded project, but that is a mandatory 9-year timeline or 8-year timeline or something like that. So, but we would get 80% of the funding. But it would cost, the project would cost more total, but then we get 80% of it back. So redevelopment would end up paying less, but the project would cost more. If that makes sense. And the scope and size of this project is worth the extra cost to get federal funding.
That would take 8 years.
You know, I think if the funding, the notice of funding opportunity that comes out this year that we would apply for, I think is for, maybe it's projects in 2030. I don't know what it's at least 6 years. And so they add in time for right of way and utilities, whether or not you're gonna have those or not.
Okay, anything else on the road design? Okay. 100 South, reconstruction, paving.
I also have no additional updates.
Do you know if Highway Department, how extensive they were going to go through and stabilize some of that? Do you know anything from Ryan?
I've not checked in with them on that.
Okay. I know they've done a little bit of patching, but I thought they were going to chip seal a little bit more some of the areas that are really rough.
I'll recheck in with them on that. Would the commission be willing to refund some of the chip and seal costs since it might be lost budget from the highway department?
I'd like to know the amount.
Yeah.
Okay, Schrader's property. I need to talk to you when we get done.
Yeah. Did you want me to take the Schrader property off this
I
list?
would take it off because the project that was sort of kind of almost looking at it is dead.
Rogers Market, anything different with
No,
Rogers?
I will, again, the building is I keep submitting it. I know that Carl Barron's, has got some interest, but the Pyrotech building in Park 30 is also listed, and it's considerably cheaper. And now that building may be off the market soon, and so maybe then there'll be some more interest in the Rogers.
Larwill?
Nothing happening out there.
I haven't heard back from Mike.
Okay. US 30?
Waiting on the L3 report.
Yeah, they keep pushing it off. It was supposed to be released mid-May and still hasn't been.
Any more walkthroughs?
Well,
Dale?
I will caveat that this is kind of US 30, but not quite. I have a kickoff meeting with Allen County and DLC on Friday to discuss Yellow River and Buck Road. And that's all the invite said. There was no agenda, no specifics. It could be just the intersection improvement there. I did have I need to call Bill Hartman from Allen County Highway Department. He left a voicemail with me. I do think he wants to include the railroad crossing on County Line Road, since we're doing a bunch of work out there, maybe doing a joint project to improve that crossing. It was looked at 10 years ago, but decided it was too expensive, and the railroad track did not see enough traffic to qualify for any railroad project grant funds. So
Would that mean the County Line Road is not going to be closed off?
that is south of the closure. That would still be within the county line.
Okay.
The plan is still to close that off. I mean, NDOT's still planning on closing the intersection.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to do a favor for that family to reach out to Dana and see if they'd be open to a right-in right out going north, but not a chance.
I told Teresa this too, that family that came that was upset. I looked into this for another client, that there's recently a case in Indiana that went, I think went all the way to the Supreme Court, that when they closed off 37, when they did the 69 extension south of Indy, there was a big lawsuit between some of those property owners and losing value in their property because their connection was cut off. So they wanted to lower court, the property owner did, but it got overturned. and that the court ultimately said you still have access to a road, because it was like directly onto a road and then on to 37, and they said, well, that's kind of once removed. We didn't take away your access. So that's the law of the land now, is that just because they're losing maybe a better access than they had before, they still have access.
Loss
So
of convenience.
yeah, they're not going to get any, they're not going to get any money unless that, and that, so that's pretty binding precedent. There's nothing to do about that.
Yeah, whenever the Pell study comes out, it would give a few more ideas on whether it thinks that a right in, right out at that intersection might be appropriate. So Dana, who's the district engineer, I'm guessing he would say I defer to whatever that recommendation may be.
In the draft Pell study, they didn't really talk much about those intersections since they were already included in state projects.
You're right. Yeah, we'll see.
Dale, any more walkthroughs you got?
I don't have anything lined up.
Okay.
Who wants to walk through a hot factory and
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have any ice cream plants.
Miscellaneous matters.
that's what we need at Rogers Market. We need an ice
Yeah.
cream plant.
Oh, can't make this up. I got a lead for that building that I submitted, and I'm gonna call BS on it from the regional partnership. There is an ice cream, a small ice cream from, of all places, Iraq. Not making it up. I just kinda like, well, what are we doing here? But I submitted it.
Miscellaneous matters.
I don't think I've got anything.
Anybody? Okay, we got some claims.
Yep, got 3 here. One is the remaining Whitco vocational grant, and the other 2 are more typical.
Okay, the first claim is Carson LLP, services through May. The amount due is $501.50. The second invoice is Chad Banks mowing service.
That's for mowing out of the Niedermeyer property.
Yeah, for mowing at the Niedermeyer property, $350. Third invoice is from Whitco Community Schools, from the training grant. The total is $38,338.22.
I think that satisfies that. We're done with that.
Yep,
Yeah.
that training grant's done.
These 2.
Do I have a motion to approve the minute, or the
I'd make a motion that we approve the claims as presented.
I'll second.
first and second? Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor, raise your right hand. All them opposed, the same. Let it show that it passed. And you said we didn't have minutes? No minutes? Okay. Anybody in the audience have anything? Jill? Andy?
No, sir.
John?
Nope.
Frank?
No, sir.
I have nothing. Nathan?
Nope.
Brent? We're adjourned.